What's up, guys? Welcome to the 330 Sports Show on a Friday afternoon, Friday, February 6th, 2026. I'm Justin Coffin. We're going to give some Super Bowl trivia, some Super Bowl facts, do our score predictions, and some fun prop bets. So we're going to do that all in a minute. Before we do that, we're going to have a little intro, and then we're going to bring on Greg Kirchner as well. All right, Greg, welcome. This is going to be kind of a quicker show, but we're going to give some of our intro thoughts on the Super Bowl. So, Greg, I guess, Seahawks, Patriots, your overall thoughts on the game coming up.
Yeah, it feels like it's a game that, I don't know, there hasn't seemingly been the same amount of hype like leading up to it. It's been relatively quiet. I don't know why, but is there two up and coming teams that I think neither were expected to be here, but two very good teams, very good stories, and I think it has an opportunity to be a pretty solid game.
I agree. I think Seattle's been one of the most dominant teams in the league, one of the obviously the best team in the NFC in a very good division. The Patriots have kind of had the easier schedule, but again, like you said, two up and coming teams, and they're here, and they've earned it. So whatever you think of the Patriots schedule or whatever, they've got here on their play on the field. So I want to do a few facts, go through these are always kind of fun, a few interesting facts. So obviously these two teams have met in a previous Super Bowl 11 years ago. This is the 10th repeat matchup of a previous Super Bowl, which again, these teams met in 2015. It's the fourth appearance by the Seahawks, who are 1-2 in Super Bowls, and should probably be 2-1. We can get to that in a little bit, but the Patriots lead all franchises with their 11th appearance in the Super Bowl. 11, 6-4 in the Super Bowl up until this point. And I think there's a bunch of teams like the Steelers, the Cowboys, the 49ers that have 8 appearances, but New England far and away with their run through the pretty much the early 2000s until about 2020 have went on an amazing run to take that lead.
This would, I guess, be their second non-Tom Brady Super Bowl, right? You had 85 against the Bears when they got blown out, and then I think then the Brady era.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, did not even put that together. And we have now Mike Vrabel, taking over the Bill Belichick role, a 3-3-0 guy, a Buckeye. So part of me wants him and the Patriots and Travion Henderson to win, but then part of me wants Jackson Smith and Jigba. I kind of like the Seahawks a little bit more than I like the Patriots franchise, but it's an interesting dynamic for who you root for, and part of me just hopes it's a really good game. But I really don't have any ill will towards either of these franchises. I know the Patriots have been dominant and kind of boring, but I feel like this is a whole new era of Patriots football. So, and like you said a few weeks ago, it's nice to finally see a New England team finally get a good quarterback, after all. So it's just ridiculous. Drake May has the opportunity to add North Carolina to this prestigious list of having a president and a Super Bowl winning quarterback to this list. So Delaware with Joe Biden and Joe Flacco, Miami of Ohio with Benjamin Harrison and Ben Roethlisberger, Michigan with Gerald Ford and Tom Brady, Navy with Jimmy Carter and Roger Staubach, and Stanford with Herbert Hoover and John Elway and Jim Plunkett. So it's a pretty prestigious list right there. So yeah, Drake May could do some stuff. However, he has a few things working against him. Here's a few. This is interesting. I saw this going around, so I thought I'd share it. So starting quarterbacks with less than 5 letters in their last name have never won a Super Bowl. There's been 3 of them. Drake May would be number 4. Joe Kapp, Jared Goff, and Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan should have a Super Bowl. Blew one to the Patriots. And Drake May now has 4 letters in his last name. So can he break the trend? Also, quarterbacks with the initials DM have never won a Super Bowl. Dan Marino and Donovan McNabb. So Drake May's got a few things going against him with the initials and the last name. Is it a crazy trend, or can he buck the trend in this one, Greg?
I think he's certainly capable. I know he's, that one of the talks this week is that he's battling some type of shoulder injury, which, again, Darnold supposedly has had an oblique injury for the past few weeks and hasn't really impacted him at all. So, I mean, Drake May is certainly very capable. He's a young star. He reminds me a lot of Josh Allen, a young Josh Allen, with how, he's mobile, can make any throw on the field, take some chances.
Yeah.
So he certainly can buck this trend, but he's facing a pretty stout defense on the other side as well. So, I think it'll be, I think if you're, as we get into like bets and props and things like that, if you like the Patriots to potentially win the game, then a Drake May MVP bet is probably the safest. If you're thinking that way, because probably all likelihood that's how it would go.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And you mentioned obviously if you get to the Super Bowl, you're a damn good team. But the average scores in all of their games throughout the season, Seattle, an average score of 28.4 points scored to 17.2 points given up. I believe that's number 1 in the NFL of points allowed. So they're plus 11.2 points per game. New England average score 28.8 to 18.8, so plus 10. So right in that same neighborhood. Seattle has faced a tougher competition throughout the season, so that might bode more well for them. Plus, they're playing in the West Coast, a very familiar venue for them, a place they play every single year. So we'll see how that factors in to this Super Bowl. It might have some effect. It might not have any effect at all, but you can use those numbers for how you perceive it. In this Super Bowl, this is a cool fact. I thought I'd incorporate the state of Ohio, since the Browns and the Bengals rarely, if ever, get there. But did you know all the footballs used in the Super Bowl are made by Wilson at their Ada, Ohio factory? Each team receives 108 footballs, 54 for practice, 54 for game use, which I thought was kind of cool. So Ada, little town, Ada, Ohio. I believe it's Northern Ohio University is there, and that's
Ohio Northern, yeah.
Or Ohio Northern, like a very good pharmacy school, if I'm not mistaken. But kind of a cool little nugget there to bring in Ohio to this. Also, in Santa Clara is where the Super Bowl is. The average face value of a seat at the Super Bowl is $6,500. Pretty hefty price. That's just the average. And that's face value. Who knows what some of them are going on the secondary market. In 1967, the ticket prices averaged around $6 a seat. And, that year, there was also 30,000 empty seats. So I'd say no sport or no event stock has risen more than the Super Bowl over the last 60 years. So just insane pricing for some of these to get in that stadium. A couple other random facts. The halftime performers, and I know there's been a bunch of controversy, and we are not talking about any of that because you know what? No one gives a shit what you think about the Super Bowl halftime show. There's going to be a whole bunch of boomers out there that'll be like, I hated it. Yeah, like, you know what? No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Stay off of Facebook. Don't, keep your comments to yourself. If you don't like Bad Bunny, don't watch it. If you don't like it, go stuff your fat face full of food.
I mean, there are multiple options for the halftime show, so
Yeah.
including just not watching any of it. So
Yeah, exactly. You have plenty of options, and one of those options is if you don't like it, keep your opinion to yourself too. But I always love scrolling Twitter or Facebook at like right after halftime before the third quarter starts. It's always great entertainment to see what certain people post. So I'll just leave it at that. Also, commercials, one of the most popular things for the non-football watchers. A 30-second commercial for this year's Super Bowl is estimated to cost roughly $8 million per spot. So NBC is going to do very well this weekend. As Greg mentioned last week, they have the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. They have the Olympics running through on NBC and Peacock. They also have the Super Bowl this weekend. So this is a hell of a weekend for NBC. A couple other by the numbers, and then we're going to get into our prop bets and predictions. But by the numbers, 55 points is the most ever points scored by one team in a Super Bowl. That was the San Francisco 49ers versus the Denver Broncos. That was one of those Super Bowls I think the Cleveland Browns should have been in, but neither here nor there. 3 points, the fewest points ever scored in a Super Bowl, the Miami Dolphins versus the Dallas Cowboys. And then 0. I thought this was interesting. There has never been a punt return touchdown in the history of the Super Bowl. So I thought that was an interesting fact that you figure out 1 point in the last 60 years.
Yeah, that is actually crazy.
So very interesting. So
it's interesting too because you have 2 really good punt returners in this game. So
that's yeah. So I mean, there's got to be a first time for everything, right? So there's always that chance. Okay, so we're gonna make our predictions in a little bit, but I just do want to show you guys a few numbers. So this was as of last night. So I don't believe the spreads have changed. Maybe like some of the juice has, but the Seahawks have been a 4.5 point spread pretty much since the end of the NFC Championship game. So basically, you'd have to lay down $112 to win 100, and the Seahawks have to win by 5 for you to win your bet. The Seattle money line is minus 235. So if you think Seattle's going to win, you're just betting on Seattle to win the game by whatever score, 1 to 1,000,000. You're betting $235 to win 100. On New England, if you're on the New England money line side, if you bet 100, you'd win 194 back. They are plus 194. And obviously they are plus 4.5 in this game. So that's one of them. The other big main number of this game is 45.5. It's slightly juiced to the under, which kind of surprised me. But 45.5 is the total. So if you're betting the over, you want 46 or more. If you're betting the under, you want 45 or more. But that's anything stick out to you on either the spread or the total at face value there, Greg?
Not really. And I think it's, the fact that the line really hasn't moved, and I'm not sure that it will move. We'll see. Sometimes you get that Sunday push, but, kind of, it's a pretty straightforward over under too. Like when you think about it, like a 20, so it's like kind of what an implied total, like of a 20, 25, 21 type score, or whatever. So it just feels like it was a pretty Seattle's clearly, for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, is kind of the better team on paper.
Yep.
More battle tested, and that 4.5. What do they call that? They call that the Vegas zone, I think. So it's I think it's just, and I think the public has proven it to be a just line. So
I agree. I'm leaning one way in this game. But the way I've been betting lately, I wouldn't trust my opinion. But I'll give you my opinion here shortly. We'll give our score predictions shortly. But before we do that, Greg, let's go into. Do you have any favorite prop bets for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so I don't like to get into the crazy, like how long is the national anthem going to be and all that stuff. I'll leave
Sure.
that to um, but like, I mean, when I look at the game itself, I always think, and I do this with a lot of games when you're approaching like prop type bets or yardage bets, like the top players are going to have pretty high marks, right? Like JSN, I don't know what his over under receiving yards is, but it's pretty significant, and he probably is going to have a good game. But I try to look at like who are some unsung guys that may be worth looking at, from a prop standpoint. And a few things come to mind. So I like, you think about guys like who are some dogs, some gamers that can go in there and make plays in a big game. I look at like Mac Hollins on the Patriots. Like he's got I think his over under somewhere around 25 yards. He's a guy that has a lot of toughness in a game where they may be taking Diggs out of the game a little bit, where there's going to be a lot of pressure on Drake May. Maybe Hollins can break through, make a couple catches. And again, it's like one big play, you get your 25 yards.
Yep.
On the other side, this isn't so much like a dog, but it's more like a guy who can be a game breaker. And it's Rashid Shaheed for the Seahawks. Again, he can get a long one, so you could look at like yardage, receiving yardage props. I actually really like a Rashid Shaheed touchdown because he does return kicks. He's plus 370 to score a touchdown, and he can do it on kickoff. He can do it on punts, and he can also do it on a big play. So I thought that was interesting. Mac Hollins is plus 430 on a touchdown.
Okay.
So I thought those were really interesting. Also, like because of potentially Drake May and the shoulder, and how well is he going to be able to throw down the field? I mean, I think he's going to be fine, but also the fact that Seattle has a really strong pass rush. Looking at like running back receiving yards too, like Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, who has not done much. I know, like I'm looking at here, like Travion Henderson, 10 yards receiving plus 10 yards plus receiving is plus 198, which I think is crazy. Now, he hasn't done a whole lot, but he's the type of guy, we saw it in the playoffs last year with the Buckeyes. He's a game breaker. Like he's a guy that like, just because he hasn't done that much. And if you remember during the year, there were times during the year where he was being called a bust and different things like that. And then he had a few huge games.
Yeah.
So this is a spot where like Travion can break one. And it might be it might be a dump pass and he takes off. But I mean, you think about 10 yards. I mean, I'll take 2-1 odds on him getting 10 yards. He might not touch the ball. I mean, Ramondre has been their number one guy. Definitely. But like, can Travion make a few plays in the passing game? Sure. So that was an interesting one. And then the last one that I thought kind of jumped out at me, and I'm trying to go find the exact odds here. But it is like looking at, okay, so I we'll talk about who we like to win the game. If you like Seattle to win the game, looking at that Super Bowl MVP is always interesting. So Sam Darnold's plus 115 to win Super Bowl MVP. So that's basically implying that if Seattle wins the game, Darnold's probably going to win the MVP.
Sure.
Jackson Smith and Jigba is plus 550 to win the Super Bowl MVP. There is a definite scenario where the Seahawks win this game. Darnold has a very good game, but like Smith and Jigba has like 9-10 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's probably winning the MVP.
Like we're talking like 2021 Rose Bowl numbers.
Yeah, there. I mean, I don't think it's like it's not a, like if you look at the Super Bowl MVP odds for the Patriots, it's pretty much like Drake May is plus 230 and then Ramondre Stevenson is plus 3,000. So they're acknowledging like if the Patriots win, Drake May's winning the MVP, and I think I like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion if the Seahawks win this game that Sam Darnold wins the MVP. I think it'd be a great story, but I like JSN plus 550 to win MVP just in the event that he has a monster game. And maybe Darnold throws a pick or something and doesn't have the greatest game other than throwing to JSN. And JSN gets so much of a target share. I just find that one interesting. So those are a few.
Well, and quarterbacks get so much of the love. We see that all the time. It's quarterbacks usually the MVP of the league, which was true. But JSN last night, offensive MVP for the NFL in the 2025 season, he has been putting up some monster numbers. He doesn't put up a ton of touchdowns on the season. However, he does. He scores often enough, but he puts up a ton of receptions and yardage. So he puts up, like you said, a 10 for 150 and 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty good case for being the MVP, especially if Sam Darnold's numbers are like 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's very, very likely. I'm going to tell you my favorite prop bet that jumped out to me. Now, the juice is pretty high, but my favorite bet, and I'm going to make sure I get the juice right here, because this was one of the first things I searched for. Because if you remember, even back to when the Browns played the Patriots, Myles Garrett had 5 sacks in that game. Drake May is sacked quite a bit. So my favorite bet is the Seattle Seahawks team to record the most sacks in the game. And that is minus 192. So you're putting up, you gotta pay 2 to 1 basically for that bet. But if you put $100 on it, you're winning 50. So it's to me, I think that's my favorite bet, because it's more likely than not to happen. And Drake May is going to be scrambling. The Patriots line isn't the greatest. And I think the Patriots are also going to be playing from behind. So I think the Seattle Seahawks defense is going to be able to tee off a little bit, which also could help Drake May's numbers in the passing game. So, take from that what you will. Those are just a couple of my 2 cents from that. One thing you did say, if you're a Patriots fan or you're leaning maybe Patriots in this game, you did say if Drake May to win MVP, but if Drake May combined with scoring a touchdown plus 1,000. I think that's an interesting bet. If you
he scores a rushing touchdown and wins
MVP plus 1,000. So maybe throw $10 on that. If you're a Patriots fan, you might come out $100 ahead. Sam Darnold, I like this one a lot. 100 yards passing each half plus 145. That's one that stuck out to me. And then anytime touchdown scorers, you had mentioned Drake May plus 280. I like either of the tight ends to score in this game. It's AJ Barner for Seattle. I believe he's like kind of their tush push short yardage guy. Plus 240. He's also can score, obviously receiving, or Hunter Henry plus 240. So both tight ends plus 240, Drake May plus 280 to score a touchdown. So those are some interesting ones you threw out.
It's definitely a tight end running back, like throw to the running back type of game, with 2 really good defenses, 2 really good secondaries. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Those were, I know that there's a million things you can bet on in those games, so I don't want to get too crazy, but those are the ones that like kind of stood out to me. I'll probably put some stupid long parlay together for one of my last bets. I kind of like at least attempt to minimize my gambling from after the Super Bowl to when football kicks off again in August. But so I might have one last hurrah here of
empty the clip.
Yeah, a little empty the clip action on some Super Bowl prop bets. But those are some of the ones I like that stand out. So let's get right into it then, Greg. I'll give my score prediction first. Okay. I do think Seattle wins this game. I think they cover, and I think it goes over. So I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks to win 31-20. And like I said, over the 45.5. Seattle, I think, can cover comfortably. But if it's 31-20 at the end and New England scores a touchdown, I guess they would have to go for 2 in that scenario to get it down to a 3-point game. So, but I'm going to go Seattle 31, New England 20. How about you?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm kind of almost right there with you. I'm slightly under, so I'm Seattle 27-17. Similar type of game, similar type of spread there, covering, but just slightly going under.
Okay.
All that being said, I think there is one thing that's be remiss not to mention. I mean, a lot of the, Vegas usually wins out, as we know, Vegas wins
Yes.
often. Right? I think as of the last time I checked, I think there's a lot, like the high percentage of the money right now is on Seattle. So, if there is a path to kind of go contrarian and go Patriots, that's one. And if so Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft were kind of passed over for the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Does that have any bearing on how this Patriots team is going to approach this game? Probably not, but maybe
Right.
Mike Vrabel has a little extra juice in him because, I mean, he's a Patriots guy through and through. He was around in that era. I don't know, but I mean, there is a little bit of the old, like, everybody's counting us out. Nobody likes us. Nobody wants us to be here. Nobody wants our guys to be in the Hall of Fame. Nobody thinks we're going to win. So, I think there is the counter to the Seahawks winning kind of comfortably and covering is the Patriots winning outright, as a possibility. And we know when Sam Darnold's bad, he's really bad. So, that is
Yep.
another path that they would have. But all that being said, Seattle is the better team. They have a dominant defense, and I think it's their time to win it.
I agree. I there is a term out there that gamblers use, and it's called fade the public. When a lot of the public money is on one team, you do want to bet the other. We are kind of going chalk here with our picks, but sometimes the public does win too. It's the way it goes. But these are our score predictions. I am going 31-20. Greg is going 27-17. So we both like roughly about a 10-point victory for Seattle. And Greg is on slightly on the under. I am slightly on the over. I think I'm going to bet the over, but I'm going to bet that with the Seattle money line because I just don't love the 4.5, even though that's my score prediction. There's a chance of a backdoor cover at any point, or just weird stuff can happen in the Super Bowl. Like last year, a ton of people were on the Kansas City Chiefs, and what happened? The Eagles blew them out. So this would not be the craziest thing in the world to have New England win this game. But I think with that said, we are both on the Seahawks.
Yeah. And to your point on that too, it doesn't, famous last words, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a blowout. It doesn't feel like a 3-score game.
No, it does
now,
not.
Maybe there's like a pull away at the end, which puts you in if you're in a 2-score game and you got a 4.5-point spread, you're right. This is like a ripe, like for a backdoor type cover. So yeah, sometimes it's like, give up a little bit of the juice, but take the Seattle money line and then maybe parlay it with a couple things to get it more to like an even money kind of thing. And might do you better than having to sweat out whether the Patriots are going to go down and score and get a 2-point conversion or something to
right. What I would say, all I would say for anyone that's, just bet what you think and let it be. Bet what you're comfortable losing. It's generally Vegas wins on these, but also if you're going to have fun with it and put some bets out there, have a game script, kind of how you think it's going to unfold in your head. Don't just blindly go picking stuff. Be like, okay, do I think Seattle's going to win? Okay, I'm going to do Seattle money line. I think Sam Darnold's going to have X amount of yards. I think Smith and Jigba's going to have a touchdown and X amount of yards. So like have kind of a game script you think. And if you think Seattle's going to be up, maybe Drake May is going to have to pass for more yards or rush for a touchdown. Whatever you want to do, let it be your own bet. You can take some advice out there, but like let it be your own at the end of the day, because sometimes we're we're all aiming at a dartboard, and sometimes we hit the trip 20s, and sometimes we throw it off the dartboard completely. So hopefully we're right.
Think about your unsung heroes. That's the one advice I will give. Now also, like, don't bet like Shaheed, Hollins, Cooper Cup, and Booty all to get something right, because
Right.
they're not all going to hit. But I could tell you probably one of those guys is going to hit their number, and maybe hit a big number. So, if it's like, hey, I really like Mac Hollins, I'm going to go that, and then parlay him with like a Smith and Jigba something, or Kenneth Walker something that's a little bit more reasonable. But yeah, like, those are the type. It is the Super Bowl, and it seems like, in any big game, you have your big time guys, but you also have your unsung heroes. So.
Absolutely. And us as Buckeye fans, either Thayer Mumford, Travion Henderson, Mike Vrabel is going to lift the trophy, or JSN. So from a Buckeye perspective, that's pretty cool. I really like Mike Vrabel, but it's hard for me to go against the Seahawks in this game. But yeah, so those are some of our thoughts. Hopefully at the end of the day, it's just a really good game. And, maybe one day we'll be talking about the Browns before I'm dead. So we shall see. But for Greg, I'm Justin. Appreciate you guys all for watching. Hope everyone enjoys the Super Bowl, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube